Kundalini Awakening. Some tips, some tricks, and my experience. What's up, everybody? Back with Michael here, and I'm going to show you how to get rich without money by finding internal wealth and happiness. Here we go. Kundalini Awakening. I'm speaking to my younger self right now. When I was going through this experience, I didn't have anyone else in my life really to talk to about it. I didn't have anybody else in my life who really understood this other than one person. And others who knew about it, but no one in my life really was going through this experience. We all go through this experience on various degrees of the scale. Some of us actually feel these symptoms that I'm going to describe, and some people go through it very, very, very gradually. It really all depends on how the body is set up at that given point in their life. And some people never really experience this shift. But what's happening on the planet right now is everything is going really, really, really fast. Fast. The awakening is happening with a much quicker rate. So let's get into it. 2 years ago, I went through a Kundalini awakening. It was a process that I was going through for some time, but I didn't really know what was happening at the time, so I didn't know what to call it. How I started was I started drinking ayahuasca. Started drinking ayahuasca pretty regularly. I was a very sick man. I was bound up in my lower nature. I was trapped by sex. I was trapped by physicality. I was trapped by what the world was telling me, and I was trapped by my own internal negative emotions and negative mindset. I was an aggressive, hostile man coming out of the United States military, and I started to seek truth. I started to seek how and what and when is in my reality. Instead of seeking what was been told to me, I started to look everywhere else. And I really had no filter. I would just start to see what was out there. I would dive into rabbit holes, and I'm like, oh my God, like I never knew this even existed. I never even knew this was a thing. So I started to question my reality, like many of us do. You know, we wake up, we call it, the word of spiritual awakening, the word Kundalini awakening is kind of becoming more common now. But one night, after years of working with ayahuasca, which opens up your Kundalini, years of yoga, years of meditation, years of breath work, I would say about 2 to 3 years of seeking this Kundalini experience, well, it found me. And might I add that I, realistically, for a better term, I broke my back. I had 3 herniations in my lower spine, which were spiritual injuries. On my L4, L3, L2, and L1, my entire lumbar vertebrae was herniated, pretty much. And I had very bad arthritis, and I had leaky gut. So my lower dimension in my body was pretty much destroyed from abusing it for pretty much 15 years of my life, okay? But one night in a meditation before I went to bed, I felt this incredible energy sit me up. Like somebody just put a rod up my back. It just sat me up straight. And I didn't know what was happening. Just sat me up like this. And I was doing chanting at the time, so it sat me right up. All of a sudden I had this energy coursing through my veins that was so intense I could barely take it. And I just started breathing. All of a sudden my body started to contort itself in crazy, weird ways. It started in my hands. It started like I started moving. It looks weird, I know, but it's not. It's just before I knew how to control the energy, I let it just take over. And this energy started to just move my body in ways that I wasn't able to move in years. Remember, I hurt my back severely. I herniated discs. It was a spiritual injury. Once I understood the spiritual messages, I started to heal. But at this time in my life, I could not pick a glass of water up off the floor. I was not able to bend over past about like 90 degrees. or how would it look to you guys? Like this, right? I was not able to bend over at all. During my Kundalini push, I would touch my toes and I would bend all the way back into a back bend, and I would touch my toes again and I would bend all the way into a back bend, and I would stretch so deep, and I would feel all this energy pulling out of my spine, and I would stretch over here and I would feel all this energy pulling out of my spine, and I would contort myself into a back bend. I mean, like a real back bend, like all the way back, and then I would fold all the way forward and be able to touch my toes almost to where my head would touch the floor. And grant you, I was in so much pain on a regular basis that you used to be able to see it in my face. Like the pain used to start to, I look back on pictures and you could see the pain in my face. I looked like I was 40 years old when I was like 27, because I had so much pain I was holding in my body from this injury. And this experience started to break open my lower energy centers. And once I understood what was happening, I started to breathe, and then I was like, wait a minute, I know yoga. I've been studying Ashtanga yoga for like 5 years. I had a full practice. I was through the first series. I was almost into the second series. So I was able to use this energy, and I pretty much gave myself a yoga class. I pretty much did yoga for 3 hours it lasted. And this wasn't like easy flowing yoga. This was the most intense breathing, the most intense yoga I've ever felt in my entire life. And when I was done, I was exhausted. I thought I was gonna throw up. I actually ran to the toilet thinking I was gonna throw up, but I didn't. So after about 3 hours, the energy started to like calm down. And I was like, I thought it was never gonna end. I didn't know what to do. I was really kind of starting to get nervous. I just stuck with it, and I kept centering myself. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. You know what you're doing. You're in full control. You're healing. You're healing. You're healing. You're healing. And I just felt this pulsating energy in my spine, like a pulse. And every time I would like pull it up out of my shoulder blades, and it was like working its way up my spine. It was like the most intense thing I've ever experienced in my life. I can't explain it to you. And I'm sharing this with you because when I went through this experience, I looked on YouTube and I listened to other people's stuff to find some sort of understanding in this. And this is before I read a lot of the scriptures and the esoteric knowledge on this and really understood what it is that was happening. So, this happened to me 2 more nights after my first night. But it wasn't as intense. If the first night was like 100%, the second night was like 85, the third night was like 60. But still, even that 60% was completely exhausting. For about a week, I just like laid on the floor like I just saw a ghost. My eyes were like this, right? I was like, I don't know what just happened to me. My partner, you know, my wife, I talked to her about this kind of stuff, and she totally, you know, at the point in our life where we are now, you know, she's totally like, yeah, okay, well, like, you know, she told me after the third night, she's like, just go in the other room because you're breathing loud, you know? She's just like, yeah, okay, just go in the other room because you're breathing really loud and I'm trying to sleep. So I'm like going through this in the next room, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm never going to be normal again. But these are the thoughts. This is the sickness in our mind. Because what the Kundalini was doing is it was waking me the F up. I saw myself in a new light when I woke up in the morning. I was like, holy wow. I was like, whoa, life is amazing, right? And I was totally exhausted, but like I would drink water and I'd be like, oh my God, this water. Everything was just amazing. Everything was blissful. I was in a state of bliss for a while. And then eventually I would calm back down. I would ground myself. I really worked on grounding myself on a regular basis, because I would just like shoot out into the galaxy and I would be lost in like these really higher dimensional thoughts for like a long time, and I really wasn't able to get anything done. Like, nothing made sense to me. It was hard for me to keep a schedule for a while. It was hard for me to like understand time. Like, people would be like, you want to do this next week at this time? And I'll be like, I don't know, ask me next week, like right before you're about to do it. And if I can do it, then I'll do it. And they would be like, why can't you just let me know if you want to do it? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing next week. And they're like, well, yeah, that's why you tell me. And I'm like, it didn't make sense to me to plan. It didn't make sense to me to to keep a schedule. I just kind of was like there. So I worked on grounding myself, and I worked through a lot of stuff. It brought a lot of just shit up from my lower chakras, like a lot of the thoughtless and useless sex from my youth, like that just all came up to my mind, and I had to clear it. And I went through like really like weeks of sleeping, really intense dreams of clearing all that old shit out of my lower centers. And also, what Kundalini taught me was a much deeper essence of the asanas. And actually, I understand a lot of the ancient stuff that you read about in yoga, especially the Kundalini yoga, because of my experience. It gave me a download of what some things are and what some things aren't. And I can't really even put into words what they are, but it's like, I just have an understanding of what it is now and kind of what I went through. So I'm just sharing this because when people go through this, they can feel very lost and misunderstood, and some people don't have the support factor that I had. I had great support. You know, my partner, she's like ride or die with me. So I was able to cut my life out completely, remove all responsibilities out of my life, and just focus on this period of my life of when I went through this. But some people that are like going through this and they got responsibilities and their partner may not understand it, their family doesn't understand it, it can be hard. Because when the support isn't there, then when you start getting questioned by other people on top of yourself, you know, and that it can be frustrating and it can be confusing. So just know that when you're going through this experience, you know, everything's okay and you know exactly what to do. And some of the best advice that was given to me during this experience when it got really intense was that I control it. And when I started to learn that, you really do. You really can control it, and you can actually say no. And you can turn it off if you want to. I don't recommend turning it off. I never turned it off. I more or less started to tone it down. Like, I was able to like let it in and let it out for some time. And I had one other experience where it hit me again, like a year later. I was just laying on the floor and I went to move and my whole spine locked up on me. Like, I was like almost in tears. I thought my life was over again. Like, I thought I just broke my back. All of a sudden, I was like, wait a minute, this is different. This is different. And my spine locked up on me. And I got in my position again. And I started to move my energy again. I started to move it. And I went and saw an acupuncturist that night too to help my chi, help my prana move. And she helped a lot of it break free. But by the time I was on my way to the place, I was able to get it moving again. And then what acupuncture is a really good method for helping the chi and the prana move in your body. So if you need assistance in this, I really recommend using acupuncture and yoga asanas. It's very, very important. I actually see now what the asanas are really made for. It's to move energy in the pathways of our body, and I saw it on a much deeper level. It's like, yeah, duh, Mike, it's what yoga does. It moves energy in your breath. Yes, but when you get into a state like when the Kundalini, when you're feeling it, when you'll know, like there's no doubt when you'll know if this happens to you. It's really good to have some asanas on hand that you know how to move so you don't hurt yourself, because I could have hurt myself. Like, I was moving so deeply that I was so sore the next day. I thought I couldn't move. I was drinking like a gallon of water to rehydrate. Like I was like a mess. So you have to be careful. You got to protect yourself. It's nothing to be scared of, but you got to like trust yourself, and you kind of got to get some tools under your belt. So when this happens, it's like, okay, let's do this. Let's let this happen. Let's see what this is. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. And I just wanted to share this for people because of what other people's experiences did for me. I wanted to just give back. And now that I'm through it and I have an understanding about it, it was fun talking about it. This is the first time I actually really ever talked about it. I never came out and really talked about my Kundalini experience, my Kundalini awakening. So I wish much love and encouragement. And if you never even heard about what this is, dive into it. Books that I recommend reading on this is The Kabbalion, written by the 3 initiates. Number 2 is The Gospel of Peace. It has all the ancient manuscripts from Jesus that talks about kind of this process and how to clean and purify the body to really help this process get going. And I would say the third, that's about it. Those 2 books will really help attract and bring yourself into alignment to help this process get going. So, I love you much, my family. I love you